Are you looking for a new recovery-related podcast to add to your playlist? The RRC has recently launched its first podcast titled The Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. In the RRC, the Recovery Revolution Community, we have some amazing online meetings, and one of those is our Tao Recovery Meeting. In this meeting, one chapter of the Tao Te Ching is discussed every week as to how it relates to recovery. I hope you enjoy this week's podcast episode.
Hey guys, Buddy C. This is our May 2nd, 2019 Tao Te Ching meeting. I'd like to welcome Marla H. and Kate E. Happy to have you ladies today. Craig may chime in. He's got work that's getting in the way of his really important stuff. I'm sure a number of people are cutting off the podcast right now because Craig's not on. They're just fast forwarding to the end. So maybe I shouldn't have said anything about that. So everyone doing well? Any birthdays that any of y'all might have or
birthday?
What, Kate? You have a birthday?
Yeah,
is that right?
I just got 3 years.
Wow, congratulations.
Handed.
Congratulations.
Yes.
And is life better or worse in these 3 years?
Life has improved dramatically over these 3 years. It was pretty horrible in the past. I was having a pretty terrible life, and now my life is very good. So
It's amazing the changes just from not drinking and other things.
I had a friend in AA. He went and talked to his priest. He says, Father, he says, my life is getting so much better that I quit drinking. He said, well, my son, when you quit doing what you shouldn't be doing, things get better. Yeah. I said, well, yeah. that really is how it is, you know. And then just to add the element of ease that we get from starting to live this life of surrender, just makes it even better than that, you know, just makes it even better, which is what we're talking about today in the 40th chapter. Oh, let's meditate for a second and get centered before we start. I want to make sure we take a moment. So let's do that. Okay. Marla, what's our email? It's
wisdom526 at gmail.com.
Guys, if you have any questions, comments, want to talk about a topic related to recovery in the Tao Te Ching, any of that kind of thing, we'd be happy to entertain all of that. All of that. If you want to join us, you're welcome to. You can participate in the podcast, no problem at all. Go to omarpinto.com and check on the Recovery Revolution Community. This is a closed community with an emphasis on recovery. We have a lot of different recovery meetings. You can try the community out for $1 for the first month, and it's $12 a month after that. So
and we can use all of the perspectives that are possible. So if you want to chime in, we need it.
Oh, yeah.
Love
sure.
it.
And then we've got video of all the old, most of the old meetings, back to all that's on podcast anyway. Then we've got lots of other meetings and things that go on during the week. We've got all of that too. So lots of stuff here to help you. Craig, good to have you, sir. Glad you can make it. Or Craig's Paul.
Yeah, I'm kind of in and out. I'm backwards and forwards between jobs today, so
don't stress it, Craig. It's okay.
Why can't I control things?
No, you can't. That's the
why can I not control things?
That's the point of today's readings.
It was so much easier when I could.
You just thought it was easier, Craig.
No.
Yeah. I'm just going with it. It is what it is.
Oh God.
You been going to those meetings again?
Don't tell Cindy it is what it is.
It is what it is.
Okay, let's get going. You want to read for us there, Miss Kate?
I do.
All right. At your leisure.
All right. Okay. First translation. Returning is the motion of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. The 10,000 things are born of being. Being is born of not being. Second translation. Return is the movement of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. All things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. Third translation. All movement returns to the Tao. Weakness is how the Tao works. All of creation is born from substance. Substance is born of nothingness. The final translation. Tao is always heading back to where it came from. Tao advances by not pressing forward. Things exist because they are. They are because they once were not.
Craig, I know you've got the explanation of this one. You want to go ahead and just lay it on us and we can make the podcast short today? He can't even turn his phone off mute. How can he know what this means?
Okay, so the answer to this one is, it is what it is.
That's it. That's all. Now we can go.
One of my first quotes that I put on my wall, Tao quotes, was that the Tao advances by not pressing forward.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
My wife came in. She said, "What's that on your wall?" I said, "These are this is my wall of Tao. These are my Tao quotes." She looks at that, and she just rolls her eyes and walks out. Advances by not pressing forward. What does that mean? You know, and just storms out. Forget it.
What I like about this is there's so little in it, but there's so much content.
It's the shortest one.
Yeah, but there's just so much in it.
It basically says we're all going to die, no matter what, and your life is cyclical. You know, you're born, then you die, and then you're born, and then you die. Just like the plants and the trees and the animals and everything else that is of the earth, even the stars.
Everything is cyclical. Yeah. Everything.
So you better live life well. Because, what'd you say, Craig?
I said, just relax. Nothing is under control.
This is true. Nothing is under control. Nothing's under your control.
Under your control.
It's going to be. It's going to happen. And there's nothing we can do. There's nothing we can do to help it.
No, you just have to kind of sit back, take your ego out of it, and go, hey, this is okay. Because it is going to be okay. It usually is okay.
Everything's in this cycle, too. Everything.
Yeah, everything.
Every relationship, every life, every job, everything is in this cycle. One thing that Derek Lynn talks about, and it reminded me of this, of determining when we're holding on to things that are already dead, that the cycle's already, things that are alive or flexible and pliable. When something gets dead, it gets stiff and brittle and difficult. Non-moving.
So like a relationship, somebody's relationship that's dead is, you almost don't feel anything for that person, or else it just becomes really difficult to stay in the same place.
And how often do we hold on to those things after they're dead and gone? Or jobs. I've left a job and I've said, I should have left that job 2 years ago. I knew when I should have done that. But I kept holding on, and it kept getting more stale and more smelling, more dead. And while I was holding on to it, I couldn't grab the new thing because I was holding on to the old.
And the old becomes toxic.
Yes.
Yeah. If you hold on to the old, it does, as Buddy said, it prevents you from looking at the new or even becoming into the new.
Yeah, this episode's quite good for my dad. Okay, my dad collects things. Okay, and it's usually things that are broken. Okay, the last thing he collected was the drum out the washing machine. When he bought a new washing machine, he took the old drum out the old one. And I said to him, Dad, what are you keeping that for? He says, it's just in case anything happens with the new machine, I've got the old drum that I can fit into it, not realising it's a completely different size.
And, it probably works completely differently too at this point.
Dad, if you're listening to this, Dad, get rid of that drum at the washing machine. Just get rid of it. And probably throw out the shed, because nothing else in it's going to be any use to you. It's done.
Did he listen?
I'll tell you once he listens to this.
Okay.
Quit being the director, Craig.
Yeah.
I've left it up to him.
Okay. Stephen Mitchell on this, that part where each of those have a part of being is born of not being, or substance is born of nothingness. That Stephen Mitchell says that means the non-being means beyond the categories of being and non-being. So if all things are born of being is born of things beyond being. So they're born of something more, something beyond these things.
Would that somehow imply the Big Bang theory, that the Big Bang happened out of nothing?
That, I would think, Marla, and that what is born of something more than itself. Like we're talking about this power, this higher power, this force of the universe, that things that are being are born of something more than themselves, was what he was saying. Which would make sense, because there's more to us than what we see, obviously. We're talking about this spiritual awakening.
Yeah, if we tap into our spirit, there's a lot more to us than
that's what he's talking about. That's what he says this is talking about. That we're born of much more than we can see.
Yeah.
So that non-being, now I know, Wayne Dyer talks about that too.
Yes, it's quite potent what Wayne Dyer has to say.
Yielding is the way of the Tao. And then the third translation, weakness is how the Tao works. So if we have a relationship or anything that's not working, if we've got this fight going on, I think the first question to ask would be, how am I not yielding in this? How am I trying to run the show? How am I trying to control?
Yeah.
So I have a question about this. I have kind of an example from my life. There have been a couple people this week that kind of fell away from the program and went back to using. And they've been kind of reaching out to try to get my help, but they don't want help. They don't really want help coming back to the program or stopping using. They just want help with their lives, in their using lives. So it's not really the kind of help that I want to give them. So part of me is like, I want to help people. I want to help them with their problems. But I don't want to, yield in these circumstances. It's not like just yielding to what everybody, do you see what I'm asking? It's not like you just yield to everything that everybody asks you to do. because out of kindness, it would be nice if I went and helped this person do this and this and this. Because that's not actually going to help them because they're using, and it's actually going to enable them to use more.
Kate, I think the question is, who are you yielding to?
Right. What am I yielding to?
This is yielding is the way of the Tao, but that would be yielding to the Tao. Surrendering to your higher power. Not surrendering to everyone else. Okay?
Good distinction.
Yeah, so that's a big difference, because we know that when we love people and when we're working with people, especially other addicts and alcoholics, there's times that love does not look like what we would think love would look like. Sometimes love is saying no. Sometimes love is calling the police.
Right.
You know, I mean, sometimes love is the opposite of what it would look like to the average person, or it's not about being a doormat. So I think it starts not with yielding to those people per se, but yielding to your higher power. And the question I would ask in regards to them would be, how can I love them? How can I help them? Not, I must do, because I want to show them love, I have to do what they ask. Because that's not true. So each of those situations are different in my thinking. If someone's wanting to continue to use, I personally, I would have to draw some lines and, kind of separate them until they were ready to sober up, ready to get clean, for the most part. And if they wanted help, you could help them with that. But other than that, for me, I would stay clear.
Right.
I don't have much of a problem with that. If I ever have friends that want to go back out, I'm the last person they want to see. So, but I could see how, especially at first too, in the program, I was like, well, what does that mean? Does that mean I have to, if I'm loving people, does that mean I just have to let them all run over me and me keep doing things, all that kind of stuff, was running in my head. But I don't think so, because how many times have you seen where love was really a form of tough love instead, especially with addicts and alcoholics when they're not in a place of sobriety?
It kind of goes against I feel like I should help people sometimes when they're coming to me in desperation, but at the same time I can't help them. And I mean, I ought not help them because it's not actually helping them.
That makes sense.
And your heart goes out to them because you want to help them.
Right.
And sometimes the most help you can give someone is doing nothing.
Yeah.
Not always. That's just a case by case. That's where we have to learn to be sensitive and continue to yield to our higher power and trust that we just do the next right thing, and learning how to be sensitive to that.
Right.
Do we need to talk some more about that, or does that help?
I think that makes sense. So it's not just yielding to what everybody asks of you.
Right.
It's yielding to the way of, yielding to your higher power and doing the
next right thing after that. Because it's really, the yielding is to your higher power, because the first thing in recovery, what I've had to do is, the more I surrender over with different things in my life, the more I yield, then the more I see my higher power work in different areas of my life, just like with alcohol. So this is about yielding and turning my will and my life over to the care of God, like in the third step. My will and my life. That's everything that I'm concerned about. Everything I care about, I turn over. I let go. That's a big difference than just surrendering alcohol. That is so much more. And for me, very difficult because my life does not depend on me doing that. Now, my peace and joy does, but my life does not like it did with alcohol. I was killing myself. If I still don't turn my kids over, I might not be happy, but it's probably not going to kill me. But those are the kinds of things that bring the peace and joy into your life that a lot of people miss. A lot of people miss. We see them all the time, that come into recovery, do enough to get sober or clean, and they sit there.
Yeah, and don't change. They don't make any changes. There's no cycles in their life or in their thinking. And they're still the same miserable bitch they were before.
Yes.
But they're clean.
Yeah.
It's a hard way to live, I think.
I think so too. We've got such a better way, So it's such a better way to live that sometimes we don't do that. We don't, and it takes surrender. It takes yielding.
Yeah.
It takes yielding. And that's what this one's all about, is about learning to yield and the fact that is the way of the Tao. There's not another way. The way is a way of yielding. If we think we can add our higher power to our life, to rubber stamp all the things we're doing like a Santa Claus or something, to give us what we want, And that's not the way it works. It takes surrender.
You mean there isn't a Santa Claus?
I'll go back and delete that part, Marla, in case we have someone that I don't want to upset anyone.
Yeah, I'd be careful about that.
Craig, sometimes the answer we get isn't the one we want, but the one we need.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the Rolling Stones again, Craig?
Can't always get what you want?
Yeah. Okay. He said no.
Well, that's really true.
Yeah. He's the Rolling Stones.
Oh, who's the Rolling Stones?
It is. But that's so true. The answer I want is, I can still use and be safe and not feel like shit about myself and not destroy my life. But the answer is, that's not the answer. The answer is really, no, you can't. You have to live clean.
The answer I want is that I have all the answers. I want to have all of the answers. I remember my dad, he always had an answer for anything. He was like, I was 17, 18 years old before he finally said, I just don't know that. I'm like, what? Are you okay?
My dad's like that too.
It was every answer for everything,
Yeah.
No, I've give up having to have the answers. And that's part of that yielding, letting that ego, surrendering that ego.
Vulnerability, saying you don't know.
And being good with it.
Yeah.
Being good with it. Okay. Derek Lynn. Had some good stuff today. I'm going to read some excerpts. The weak, talking about weakness is the way the Tao works. The weak refers to things that exhibit flexibility, flexible pliancy. They characterize the Tao because the Tao drives life forward. Living things are always soft and yielding, while dead things are stiff and unyielding. This applies to the mind as well. An awareness that is in tune with the Tao is adaptable to new ways of thinking. In contrast, a mind that stubbornly clings to preconceptions and automatically rejects anything different is, in a real sense, already dead. being open-minded. What are the three? Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness?
Yes. Yeah. The how.
Yeah. Open-minded. Being can also be translated as existence. Non-being can be translated as non-existence. These lines describe how everything that has a tangible reality seems ultimately to come from nowhere. Consider a tree. It is real. It has substance. It grew from a seed, which used to be inside a fruit, which came from the parent tree. The parent tree can trace itself back in time through the same process to its own parent. When we look back like this, we quickly get to a point where the tree, the seed, the fruit, and the parent tree had no existence and existed only as pure potentialities. The same is true of us. When we trace our origins back in time, we will quickly realize that we too once existed as nothing more than possibilities. This, we must acknowledge, that our being emerged from non-being. That's how he explains that. The realization is the perfect antidote to worldly attachments. Next time you find yourself unable to let go, contemplate how we all came out of nothingness and must eventually return to it. When we understand this truth, we will see that our grasping ways make no sense at all. I put beside that, I need God's help to do this, not rationale. What cyclical, some of my notes on his, what cyclical patterns can we recognize? We've talked about that, like water, vapor, liquid, ice, liquid, vapor, life, birth, our lifespan, death, relationships the same way, all those things. That there's a life cycle with everything. And we need to be flexible and open-minded so that when we see that cycle, that we don't hold on to things that are dead and dying and keep moving forward to the next cycle. That's how we remain flexible. That's how we remain yielding. And, if we're doing that, we're going to be surrendering. We're going to be letting go. We're going to be playing our part rather than being the director, because we're not in control of any of that. Just like we're taught in recovery, to play our part, not be the director, not rewrite everyone's parts. How that if we are doing that, we're not going to take things personal.
Yeah.
We're going to just play our little part, knowing that we're not in control of any of it. That's where the peace is. And that's yielding. That's yielding. Good stuff.
Yeah, it's too bad we think too much.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
We're the only creatures that have the brain that rationalizes and then intellectualizes and analyzes.
But we're just as much a part of nature as all the other animals.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So why should we not think that our life is by design just like their lives are by design?
No, I'd love to believe and think like that. Live by, like, I know my dog lives by his instincts, which is a great way to live.
That's what we're talking about. Yeah, exactly, Marla. We're talking about learning to live by our instincts, our real instincts,
Yeah. Instead of rationalizing, intellectualizing, and analyzing. So I sometimes think it's such a curse that we think. It is a curse. So.
Is it not a blessing, though, that once we start on this path and we learn how to start yielding, we learn how to start surrendering, how much peace and joy and ease we can have in life that's there for us in everything, if we'll just learn to yield. We'll learn to get out of our way and just let it happen. Watch it happen in front of us. It's just incredible. You know, I told you if I ever wrote a book what the title would be. I didn't. I wish I were dumber. The title. Because I go to Walmart and I see all these little people in their pajamas and house shoes shuffle in, shuffle out. You know, they seem to not have a care in the world. They're all 30, 40, 50 pounds overweight. They eat bad stuff all the time, and they're just doing their thing. You know, they seem as happy as they can be. You know, waiting on their check, and I'm like, there's something to be said for that. When I was stressing and this was years ago when I was, you know, all kinds of business things going on and I was all stressed out and everything. I said, wait a minute, I'm missing something here. So that's, there's something to be said for that.
Ignorance is bliss.
It is. It is.
I think I'm going to be teaching yoga to people who have mental disabilities, learning disabilities, and they're so much fun to be around because all they do is laugh all day because they're not thinking. There's something to be said.
You know, why is it that we had a relative that got Alzheimer's and her health just picked up tremendously? And she lived for years and years and years, like into her mid-90s.
Wow.
And they said part of it was that all the stress of life was gone.
I believe that.
I'm like, I don't want to need Alzheimer's to have that. You know, I want that now.
Yeah.
And we're getting there. The things we're learning are the things that bring that about. Learning how to apply those, especially those first 3 steps, to all of our life and cleaning up any issues we have, but really learning to turn our will and our life over to the care of God in more areas. Learning how to yield. How do I know that? If I've got angst, if I'm fighting, there's always something in me that needs to change. I'm not yielding somewhere. If I'm fighting at all, because fighting is a choice. You know, I don't have to fight anything. I realize, like with my wife, it takes 2 of us to fight. If I just stop and don't fight, it stops.
How much does that piss me off?
You might get.
Yeah, that
doesn't happen often. But you know, if I don't fight back, it doesn't escalate. You know, so if I just say, "Whoa, honey, I'm not participating in this." I don't want to make her sound like a bitch. She's not, you know, she's wonderful. But, you know, like if we're fighting and like I've said something I shouldn't and then she fight, you know, then it gets started and it's escalating. If I stop and say, whoa, I'm sorry, I should never said anything. And if she wants to keep it going, I said, whoa, no, honey, I'm sorry, I'm not participating. I'll leave the room. And she'll wait. She won't.
See?
No, not happening. But it takes 2 of us. So the same with this. Anytime that we're in a situation that's getting out of control, we can stop. We can yield to our higher power and say, well, how do I need to change here? What do I need to do? How do I need to yield? How do I need to be weak? What is the problem? Surrender it. You guys ready for Wayne Dyer?
Yep. All right, Wayne Dyer, 40th verse. Returning is the motion of the Tao. Yielding is the way of the Tao. And 10,000 things are born of being. Being is born of non-being. So he titles this chapter, Living by Returning and Yielding. I see one of the greatest teachings of the Tao Te Ching here in the shortest of its 81 passages. If you can master the wisdom in these 4 lines, you'll be as happy, content, and centered in the Tao as any sage. With the first word, returning, you're being nudged towards an understanding of the basic principle of your existence. Without needing to leave your body, you're asked to die while alive. You actually accomplish this by realizing that you're one of the 10,000 things that has appeared in world form, the world of form. What Lao Tzu is expressing here in the 40th verse is what contemporary quantum physics has confirmed many centuries later. Particles do not come from particles at the tiniest subatomic level. Instead, when the infinitesimally small specks are collided in a particle accelerator, there's nothing remaining but waves of particuleless energy. In order for you, a much bigger speck, to form, you must have come from an originating spirit. So Lao Tzu may have known nothing of quantum physics in the 6th century BC, but he was teaching an essential truth even then. It's spirit that gives life. So to truly live out your destiny as a piece of the originating Tao, you must shed your ego and return to spirit. Or you can wait until your body dies and make the return trip at that time. And I love the next few paragraphs. 6 centuries after Lao Tzu dictated the 81 verses of the Tao Te Ching, the man who wrote a huge percentage of the New Testament also spoke of whence we come. Formerly called Saul of Tarsus, he became known as St. Paul, an apostle of Jesus Christ. In his letter to the people of Ephesus, I don't know how that's pronounced. Ephesus, he wrote, "You were created to be like God, and so you must please him and be truly holy." This is an invitation for all of us to return to what we came from, which is loving, kind, and not exclusive in any way. How this is accomplished, according to St. Paul and Lao Tzu, who emphasizes this point in many verses of the Tao, you do so by yielding your ego, surrendering and being humble. To that end, in his letter to the people of Corinth, St. Paul quotes Jesus directly, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." Paul then goes on to say himself, "Therefore I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me. That is why, for Christ's sake, I delight in weaknesses, in insults, in hardships, in persecutions, in difficulties. For when I am weak, then I am strong." Indeed, yielding is the way of the Tao, as well as the key to the uplifted existence, according to virtually all spiritual texts that have survived over the centuries.
Hold on there for a second, Marvin. Let's talk about this. The weaker I get, another translation of this, the Message version says, the weaker I get, the stronger I become.
The more I surrender.
Yes. The more I surrender,
the more humble I become.
The stronger I become. So the weaker I get, the more I yield, the stronger I get. It's paradoxical in thinking, which makes sense because I know in recovery, until I surrendered my alcohol entirely, there was no help. And once I did, it became so easy.
That's, I think, what has happened in this time around in my recovery is subconsciously, I yielded and I surrendered to the fact that I just can no longer live with myself as a user. I can no longer do this. Nothing, no substances. And it's been so much easier to stay sober. There's no cravings, there's obsessive thoughts anymore. It's really, and I believe it's because I surrendered to the fact that it's just not possible for me to use anymore.
I had to finally say, okay, God, either you are or you're not. I had to come to the point of suicide. Either you do it or I'm out of here. And once I made that decision, it got easy. I was like, wait a minute. This is what I wanted the whole time. Why did it take this? Because it took that for me to finally yield.
Yeah.
That's what they call in recovery, they call it a bottom, where you finally get to the point of where, you've had all you can stand and you can't stand anymore, Get your Popeye moment,
I just couldn't stand myself anymore, That was my bottom, is not being worthy. You know what, I would not have, this trip to India is such a big deal for me. I would not have been able to go if I were not sober. It would not have happened.
I couldn't even backpack for 3 days because I couldn't be away from vodka.
Couldn't you take it with you?
Not that much vodka. I couldn't hike and drink like that. Ooh, there's no way.
Can you imagine dragging a gallon of vodka with you on a 3-day trip? No, you can't do it.
Plus, physically, I couldn't hold up for that. Not drinking like I drank. And it's just incredible how much of a bondage that was.
Yeah. Ooh. It was an act of survival at some point, though, trying to cope with life,
It turns on you.
Yeah, well, eventually.
Without needing to leave your body, you're asked to die while alive. We have to die to live.
Letting go. That's just a definition of letting go and surrendering. It
really is.
You got to.
It really is.
Kill off a part of yourself.
Talking about the Spirit giving life. Must shed our ego and return to Spirit. By yielding your ego, surrendering, and being humble is how this happens.
Like going back to being a baby. Babies are born innocent and loving and kind and sweet, and
dependent.
That's what we really are.
And dependent. Think about how dependent a 3-year-old or 2-year-old or any child like that. You'd never come into a 3-year-old and say, okay, I don't know how I'm making the mortgage this month, guys. Y'all going to have to go out and get a job. We're going to have to do, I really don't know what we're going to do. You wouldn't do that to a 3-year-old.
No.
And I'm reminded of where Jesus said the kingdom of God, you have to approach the kingdom like these children in this dependency that as adults we lose because we think everything's up to us. So, and I got to thinking about a child and the responsibilities a 3-year-old has and how similar that is to the yielding that we're talking about here. Because I remember when my kids were that little, they had very few responsibilities. I gave them everything, and they had to share it. They had to do what I told them to do.
Well,
that's kind of, and there was a lot of leniency there, but, and they had to share what they had. And and enjoy themselves. And that was pretty much their job.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about how is my job now today really not that much different. If our life is all grace, if we believe that, we're part of this flow, then we believe our higher power is providing the things for us that we need. Of course, we share and give and do with what we have because everything we have is a gift. So we need to be willing to be of service and of help. And we're to enjoy ourselves. I don't know. It's not that much different, really, than what my children depended on me when they were little.
Right. And they were given everything.
Yeah.
And we will be too. God willing.
At least what we need. But how often, though, with little kids, they They make things so serious, playing in the sandbox. You can't touch this. Don't do that. I'm doing this, whatever, and you're like, just laugh at them. I think God's laughing at us the same way about the things that we make so serious, and we're just playing in the sandbox is all we're doing, really. The things we're doing are not that serious, like our work and these other things that we put so much importance on. A lot of times those things are not the serious things,
I was listening to a radio show yesterday, and one of the guys that was on, he's very forthcoming about his anxiety, his mental illness, and he was saying that his 11-year-old son was so full of anxiety at this point in his life, and how sad that is to him, and how hard it is to to ease his son's anxiety and his pain, and how not obnoxious, but how awful it is. It's such a young age. The kid is so full of anxiety, and you know what? I know so many kids who are so full of anxiety. It's really, it seems to be an American thing. These are kids that don't feel like they can control their universe.
Not just American. We've got relatives in other countries that have some, have some similar issues. But that's those ages where people start realizing that, there's a lot in the world that they can't, they try to control all of that.
Yeah.
That's tough.
It is, because you really don't want to have to medicate, but sometimes you have to. It's just a sad state of the world, that we become so anxious at such a young age.
It's a shame that in our schools that we don't teach, of course, spiritual principles aren't going to be taught in public school anyway, but which I don't want to get political and stuff, but I think that's a good thing. But I think that it's a shame that more kids aren't taught spiritual principles to live by.
Which means it should be taught in the home.
Yes, but very much so, Marla.
And most people just are not spiritual.
Awake. They're not awake.
No.
They're not awake. Few there be that find it, unfortunately. Okay, you want to read a little further for us?
Yeah, because I also did the next chapter, the next paragraph.
Yeah, there's a lot of good stuff here.
When you truly change the way you think about all of life, the world begins to look very different. You begin seeing everyone and everything as if they have round-trip tickets. They all arrive from spirit, and they must return. All that composes, all decomposes, and whether anyone else understands that isn't important to you. You find the awareness that life on earth is a death sentence to be a liberating and amusing viewpoint. You're choosing to live every day, each moment that you have, and as much as you can as the non-being aspect of yourself. As a being of spirit, you decide to use your return ticket while you're still in physical form by keeping yourself in precisely the same loving status that you occupied before entering this world of boundaries. As you take your return journey, you're returning home. As you take your return journey, you not only get to lose your ego identification card, you have the added bonus of regaining the power of your source, which is the all-creating power of the universe. You merge into the oneness of a being who dissolves ego concerns, and the world that you now see is perfect and infinite in nature. There is no more worry, anxiety, or identification with your possessions. You're a free person. You're a spiritual being, first, last, and always.
And the question he asks is, in which way am I moving? That's his big question.
Yeah. Am I getting
surrendering? Am I yielding? Am I returning to the source, or am I fighting with everything within me to hold on and stay in control and got my cat claws deep and will not let it go?
I think that's a big lesson in one aspect for aging. We're always seeking a way to stay younger and look younger, and it's inevitable that we're going to have wrinkles, and it's inevitable that gravity's going to take our boobs down. It's just not fighting the aging process. It definitely makes life a little bit easier to handle when I look at my wrinkles going, ugh, And
when you realize you're not your body.
You're not your body. That's a tough one when you're a yogi, because you're in your body all the time. Mm-hmm. But it's not the body. It's not the physical body that you're in. It's the spiritual body that you're in.
I started saying, my body would like some sugar. I would like some sugar. So I don't have to do what my body tells me.
Kind of it, but that's addiction. My body needs this drink, or pod, or whatever.
Yeah.
It's not.
No. And which way am I moving in my relationship? You could analyze any relationship, job, any concern or care that you have. And so which way am I moving in this? Am I moving toward the Tao? Am I yielding this? Am I moving toward my higher power? Or am I moving away? And while I'm moving away is by control. Is it dead and I'm just continuing to hold on to it? Or am I smothering it? What am I doing with this? And the answer is always surrender. It's always, always, always surrender. I do want to read this next, the surrender paragraph. Marla, will you read that?
Yes. This is what surrender. This is what yielding is all about. Recognize that your little ego does nothing and that the Tao creates everything, including you. As I sit and write these words in my magical writing space, I know that I don't own what mysteriously appears on the paper. I've surrendered. I know that God writes all the books, composes all the music, and erects all the buildings. I bow to this all-creating power. While it appears that all of the 10,000 things are born of the world of beingness, as I think about it more, the beingness itself came from non-being. It is to this glorious state of non-being spirituality, or the Tao, that I yield. I encourage you to do the same, and then peacefully observe how it all flows together perfectly.
Hey, Kate, that's what we were talking about. You're yielding to the Tao. You're yielding to your higher power.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the yielding starts. That's where the yielding starts. That's good.
Let me just read the last chapter, the last paragraph, because it tells you how to do it. To do the Tao now, strategically place a picture of a yield sign frequently found as a traffic device within your field of vision. Each time you look at this sign, use it as a reminder for you to return to the Tao. At least once each day, rather than continuing a disagreement, cede on the spot. In the midst of talking about your own achievements or basking in the light of your ego, stop and become an instant listener. The more you yield each day, the more you return to the peace and harmony of the Tao. That's how you do it.
Yield, yield, yield. Yielding is the way of the Tao, period.
Yeah.
Period. It's not, show me twice and I'll take it from there. That's what I want. I want you to show me and then I can do it. No, it's always yielding. The weaker you get, the stronger you become, period. All you can do is get weaker.
I think the hardest thing for me about this doing all of this stuff is like my attention span, not paying attention to all the details of stuff long enough to get the perspective and pay attention. You know, if I really focus on the Tao and focus on being connected to everything, you know, being part of this big existence and everything, then I have that perspective and I'm like, oh, everything's okay. I can let go of that. But most of the time I'm like all wrapped up in everything I'm doing and running around, and I'm like, whoa, this is all really important. Oh my God. It's craziness. You know? So I have to focus on like actually stepping back and getting that perspective more often throughout my day, I think, so that I'm not just constantly running around with my head chopped off.
Yeah.
You know, the way for me to do that, Kate, is break my day down into more moments and try to stay more in the moment. If I do that, it's easier for me to not get so strung out because I'm not getting into, you know, what's going to happen and expectations and what these folks are going to think of me and all those things that are connected, that none of that stuff that's really in the moment. If I can keep it to the moment, I have a much better chance of doing this.
Yeah.
Of yielding. That's good. Oh, I didn't tell y'all about my rally. Let me tell you about my rally real quick that I did last weekend.
How'd it go?
Oh, it went great. I loved it. It was so much fun. I had this route and I did everything and I executed like I needed to. And I was taking my rest break at the hotel. So I ran 27 hours and got to where I was staying. Instead of taking my break in the middle, I took it at the end. Checked in, went to the hotel, laid down, and woke up 20 minutes after check-in and got disqualified.
Oh.
And I just laughed about it. And I said, this is the second one in a row that I would have, the last one I would have won, that I made a mistake on. The last one I would have won. This one I would have gotten third. All things being considered, if I got all my points and all. But what I'm saying is, I'd already decided that stuff wasn't important to me. And I said, well, I guess I just needed that reinforced. So I've decided in the future I'm going to start taking these a little more casually, take a little more time, enjoy them a little more rather than compete. Mm-hmm. So, but I enjoyed it. I just had to laugh at it. I looked at it and I said, I'm sitting here. All I had to do was ride down to a service station and get a receipt and then come back and check in. That's all I had to do.
You needed your sleep.
Yeah, I never sleep that much during the day, Marla. When I've been up all night, and I do this. This is not like a one-time thing. So I'll do this pretty often. And I never sleep more than a couple of hours or 3 hours, and I never sleep heavy at all. I slept so heavy that I cut my alarm off. I didn't do multiple alarms because it's middle of the day, and, I normally don't sleep that heavy. So anyway, it was one of those things. But I enjoyed it. It didn't mess my trip up at all. It was great. Saw some great country. It was really
cool.
Southern Kentucky, for anyone who rides, it's never rode in Southern Kentucky. It's pretty beautiful, little curvy roads. I came out north of Cookeville, Tennessee. There's a nice park up there, lots of little curvies, which I enjoy. Really
like being in nature.
Really nice trip. So
good.
A little better perspective. Got to get the competition out. But the yielding really is where it's at. And this is just another way of saying it. Weaker I get, the stronger I become. Okay, for titles today, what I'm thinking, I don't know, let go or get dragged. How can I yield today? Surrender.
Being a non-being? Or is that too much, too esoteric?
I think too much, maybe. People do listen according to the title. So I don't know.
Oh.
We get more listens on the ones with more more relatable titles.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah, I thought the people would just listen to the next one in a row like I do when I'm listening to a podcast. Whatever's next, I just listen to.
Get weak to get strong?
The weaker I get, the stronger I become?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, I'll use that.
All right.
Okay, guys. Well, y'all have a great week. We'll do this again next Thursday.
See you then.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Tao of Our Understanding Recovery Podcast. For more information about the RRC, the Recovery Revolution Community, go to omarpinto.com and click on the link that says Recovery Revolution Community. Once you join the RRC, you'll be able to participate in this meeting and many more live, plus access to a video library of past meetings and many more benefits for being a part of this growing community. Thanks again for listening. And if you enjoyed this episode, please share this podcast with your friends in recovery.